I'd like to take a moment to thank some of the sponsors for tonight's event. Thank you for making this possible, Jeff and Lori Goldchin, Paul and Sandra Katz, Dr. Les and Roberta Rosenthal, Ron and Sandra Stackler, and Martin and Joy Teitelbaum. And last but not least, Mikvah USA, an organization to promote the mitzvah of family purity and mikvah. If you need more information, there is a beautiful mikvah right here in the community, and you can call up Chabad tomorrow, and one of the Rebbitzins or the rabbis will be happy to give you a grand tour of the mikvah and encourage you to make good use of our beautiful state-of-the-art mikvah. I'm sure many Rabbi Brisky's email. Incidentally, he's out of town. That's why he's not at the microphone tonight. You probably saw his nostalgic email about 1984. The very first lecture ever to take place at what was then known as the Westlake Plaza Hotel, now known as the Westlake Hyatt Hotel. It had just opened up, and we were the first people to sponsor a lecture there. And the very first lecturer was Rabbi Manis Friedman. Do you remember that? There's been about 20,000 lectures since then. The title that night was Being Jewish in a Gentile World. It was the first of a three-part series. It was Rabbi Gordon Olav Shalom and Dr. Landis. And it really set the tone, not just for the adult lecture series then, but what for eventually evolved into the Kaneo Jewish Academy Adult Education Institute, where you are sitting tonight. At the time, I was not yet working for Chabad at the Kaneo. I was a student in Los Angeles, was friendly with Rabbi Brisky, and I had access to recording equipment and high-speed cassette tape duplicators, if anybody in the room knows what a cassette tape is. And he asked me to come out to record the lecture and to copy it so they would be available for purchase after. We still have copies upstairs. And it was a fascinating, fascinating lecture, some incredibly inspirational stories that night and thoughts, and like I said, really set the tone for what became an annual event. Rabbi Friedman is a very sought-after speaker, world-renowned. He's authored several books, the most recent that came out just 2 weeks ago, which is for sale in the lobby, and he will be happy to sign it for you as well. One of the lesser-known things about Rabbi Manis Friedman is that in the days when the Lubavitch Rebbe would speak publicly, and that would go on what was called Farbrengens gatherings, where the Rebbe would speak for 4 or 5 hours at a time. Rabbi Friedman was the simultaneous translator of the Rebbe's words. And just to give you a little inkling into what that entails, the Rebbe did not give out his speeches in advance. It wasn't like the United Nations where they give you the script and you got time to look it over. So in order to be able to focus on what the Rebbe was saying, and the Rebbe was all over the place. He was all over Torah, all over Talmud, all over Kabbalah. You never knew what was going to come out, what verse he was going to quote and how he was going to put it all together. You had to be an absolute genius to be able to sit there, to listen, and to translate from the Yiddish into English simultaneously. And that was the job that Rabbi Friedman had, and did a pretty good job at it, I must say. It's an honor to have him here tonight. As I said, he's been here many times in the Kaneo. He also has a son, Rabbi Eli Friedman, who's the rabbi in Chabad of Calabasas, and he's lectured there as well. And Rabbi Friedman also has a nephew who lives right here in our community, Rabbi Mendy Friedman, also happens to be my son-in-law, who's also not here tonight because he is in New York with 27 teenagers from the Kaneo Valley, part of the annual C-Teen International Shabbaton that brings together over 2,000 teens from all over the world, quite literally. Jewish teenagers from Nigeria, Austria, and other places that you would never believe have C-Teen groups. I'm mentioning this because if you happen to have teens in your life, or you know someone who has teens, or you have grandchildren who are teenagers, especially in today's day and age, when there is so much stuff going on around, and teens need a little balance and a little meaning in their life, and the C-Teen program as well as the Kaneo Hebrew High are both fantastic programs to provide that little bit of Yiddishkeit and a little balance that they need so desperately in life. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor tonight for me to introduce to you Rabbi Manis Friedman.
Love and marriage go together like... It used to sound cute, innocent, but now when I think about it, it is so misleading. It is so confusing. It's so damaging. Love and marriage do not go together like a horse and carriage. Besides, the comparison is insulting because who are you calling a horse? We have a really serious problem called love. It's a problem because we worship love. The God of America is love. We do everything in the name of love. We will die in the name of love. We will kill in the name of love. We will marry in the name of love. And if your child has a problem, the solution is more love. You love him more. You love him a lot, love him more. It's not working. It's not working. Like every idol, this one disappoints, always. So let's take a closer look at love and find out where it belongs, what it's good for, and how it's being abused. If we were to ask a simple question, is love important to human life? No, not really. The word important is not an appropriate description of love. When someone is important, you ought to love them. That's a good old-fashioned idea. Whoever is important in your life, you should love them. But love does not make importance. I mean, look at how arrogant and nasty this idea is. If I love you, you are the most important person in the world. When I stop loving you, you're nothing. How arrogant is that? How abusive is that? My love makes or breaks your value. It's really nasty. How do we convince the average kid, 11-year-old, that the brother he hates is still more important than the dog he loves? Because he's not convinced. So if you ask him that old Talmudic question, if your brother and your dog were drowning, who would you save? His answer is, my dog. I say, why? I love my dog. I don't love my brother. That's not good. The people you love who are not important in your life, no matter how much you love them, they're still not important. And those who are important in your life, no matter how much you hate them, they're still important. So I bought my sister a little souvenir from a little souvenir shop down in the Keys in Florida. It was an embroidered pillow. And it said, I am smiling because you're my sister. And I thought, isn't that nice? Right. But on the back it said, and I'm laughing because there's nothing you can do about it. You are stuck with me. Which side of the pillow is more important, more significant, more powerful? I'm smiling because you're my sister? That's cute. Not always smiling. Sometimes you get on my nerves. But there's nothing you can do about it. That's permanent. That's real. So someone important in your life, no matter how you feel, the importance remains steady. So here's a shocker, and there are going to be a few tonight. Unconditional love is a disturbing and unhealthy idea. Everybody wants unconditional love. All the experts tell you, you must give your children unconditional love. If you say to a child, I love you unconditionally, the child feels rejected. Does that make sense? If I love you unconditionally, then you don't count anymore. You don't matter anymore. Because no matter what you do, no matter how you act, no matter how you turn out, I decided I'm going to love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. That feels like a rejection. Because love is an emotion, and emotions are reactions, response. An emotion means I am responding to you. So if you're adorable and lovable, I love you. When you're hateful and vicious, I hate you. It's got to match. I'm reacting to you. But if I decide I'm just going to love you all the time, no matter what, then I've dismissed you. I'm entertaining myself. I decided to love you. That's not even a healthy emotion. Emotions are exciting precisely because they rise and fall. They come and go. They're fickle. They're unpredictable, the way they should be. So what is unpredictable? Emotions. What can be unconditional? Facts. So a mother shouldn't say to a child, I love you unconditionally. The mother should say, I am your mother unconditionally. I will always be your mother. Unconditionally. You know how unconditionally? I will be your mother even when I hate you. And right now, I hate you. This is how we relate to God. And it's a strictly Jewish thing. No one else can do this. Nobody. It's strictly Jewish. Only a Jew can say, this is my God, and I go to the synagogue on Yom Kippur. Do I believe in God? No. Am I religious? No. So why am I in the synagogue on Yom Kippur? It's Yom Kippur. Only a Jew can do that. Only a Jew can say, the God I don't believe in wants me here, so I show up. And in the Jewish brain, that makes perfect sense. Because do I believe in God is a subjective issue. Sometimes when I'm in a good mood, okay, I believe in God. So if you ask me, do I believe in God? You're asking about me. No, I don't believe in God. Then you say, so why are you in the synagogue on Yom Kippur? Whoa. Then it's not a subjective question anymore. I'm in the synagogue on Yom Kippur because it's Yom Kippur. What am I going to do about it? And God wants a Jew in the synagogue on Yom Kippur. What am I going to do about it? So the point is, if I don't believe in God, will he go away? No. So one has nothing to do with the other. I don't believe in God, but when he wants me desperately to come to the shul, what am I going to do? So I come. A guy is running down the street, and you stop him, and you say, excuse me, was läufst du? What's the matter? He says, my wife is not feeling well. I'm running to get the doctor. So you say, wow, it's so beautiful You obviously love your wife very much. And like a typical Jew, he says, did I say anything about love? Lately, we don't get along so good. So imagine saying to him, well, in that case, what's the rush? Let's have a cup of coffee, we'll talk a little bit, you'll go later. He would say, you're out of your mind. My wife needs a doctor. And you say, but you don't love her. And he will say those immortal words, what's love got to do with it? See, that's a relationship. Love does not create a relationship. It is so painful and so disturbing. People fall in love and call it a relationship. There is no relationship. I love you not. There's just a feeling. A feeling is not a relationship. A feeling is the spirit of a relationship. So when you have a relationship, you can either love it, hate it, or not care. Be indifferent. But hate is not a relationship. Love is not a relationship. It's a response, an emotional response to the relationship. So what is a relationship, briefly? To be married, you need 3 qualities. Quality number 1, generosity. So when people ask, how do I know if I'm ready to get married? I don't think I'm ready to get married. Or I do think I'm ready to get married. How do you judge that? The first thing is, how generous are you? Because without generosity, you cannot tolerate another person in your space. You have to be generous. You have to be big enough for 2. So here's how it works. You look in the mirror in the morning. If what you see fascinates you, don't get married. If you look in the mirror in the morning and you say, you again? Get married. It's time for a new face in the mirror. So if you're fascinated with yourself, you're busy with yourself, then you're not generous enough to allow another person into your life. And generosity, kindness, comes in a number of important shape and form. You have to be generous with your possessions. You have to be generous with your time. You have to be generous with your space. And you have to be generous with your words. People are generous in different areas and stingy in others. There's a person who will let you take whatever possession you want, just not my blue suede shoes. People will tell you, you can help yourself to whatever, just don't waste my time. You want the car, take the car. Stop wasting my time. I have no time for you. Some people are generous with their time, but not with their space. Fine, whatever you want, just don't cramp my space. Stay out of my area. And then there are people who are not generous with their words. It's just a stinginess. This guy says, my wife, I can't get over it. What she did the other day, it was so fantastic. She's so amazing. I said, did you tell her? No. Why not? Oh, man of few words. And he used up those few words a long time ago. He's not generous with his words. So if you have generosity, you are ready to consider marriage, a relationship. But then there's a very important condition. You see, familiarity, they say, familiarity breeds contempt. That's a very strong word. It's much worse than hate. If familiarity breeds contempt, how could you possibly be married? I mean, what's a greater familiarity than living together day after day for years? How do you not deteriorate into contempt? So the second pillar of a relationship is dignity, mutual respect. No one ever speaks about this. In all the books on relationships, on marriage, nobody emphasizes the respect that is so crucial, because otherwise you start to abuse each other without even intending to. You have to maintain your own dignity so that it's easier for your spouse to respect you, and you have to protect your spouse's dignity so that you don't become overly familiar and start to detest each other. You know that when a couple are nasty to each other, it is so shocking and so surprising because other than that relationship, they're both nice people. That true? I say something about a guy who is really nasty to his wife, and nobody believes me. What are you talking about? He's the nicest guy in the world. He wouldn't hurt a fly. And it's true. Only with his wife, he is not only nasty, he's inhuman. Because when that familiarity goes bad, it is really ugly. Good people, decent people, deteriorate into something really, really nasty. So how do you prevent that familiarity without creating distance between them? The dignity. Preserve your dignity. It's like, again, another shocker. Every father says to his daughter, hey, you can't go out dressed like that. I think it should be the other way. Hey, if you dress like that, get out. Not in the house. You want to dress immodestly? In the street, where everybody else is doing it also. But in the house, we maintain our dignity. Because the house has to be preserved. You don't want it to deteriorate to contempt. So we have to appreciate and protect the atmosphere at home. Why is the street more important? Why would you never answer the door if somebody rings the doorbell in your nightgown? But you run around with your husband and wife, run around in their night clothes all the time? So what, the pizza delivery guy gets more respect than your husband or wife? Something's wrong. Maintain dignity. This notion that once we get married, we can do whatever we want. I can let my hair down and be ugly and nasty and sloppy and he'll love me anyway. No, doesn't work. See, again, your belief in love, that love will overcome everything. And that no matter how nasty or sloppy you are, love will keep you together. No, it won't. So, pillar number 3. If you have the generosity and you have the respect, like you see sometimes an elderly couple, they've been married like for 65 years, and they're still respectful of each other. You know what I'm talking about? Have you seen that? That's amazing. If you have these 2 pillars, You have a great relationship. What then makes it a marriage? Not every relationship is a marriage. The third pillar is sanctity. If we don't appreciate that marriage is a divine idea, not a human idea, if we don't appreciate that by being married, you're doing something and you're engaging in something that is bigger than the two of you, then you just have a functional relationship. You don't yet have a marriage. In the marriage, you are meant to dissolve, to surrender. What do you dissolve into and what are you surrendering to? Something greater and bigger than both of you. When you can dissolve, you can actually become one. Whatever keeps you separate is because you're not dissolving. You're maintaining. So add the ingredient of sanctity and you have a marriage. And here we have a problem. Major studies in major universities for a long time have come to the conclusion that men and women can't get along. It's been proven conclusively. We've tried desperately every which way. Date younger, date sooner, date more, get to know each other, understand the opposite sex. It's not working. Men and women are just not good for each other. It's a fact. You know, there's this book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I never read that book. Because after that title, what's the point? You tell me men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and then you're going to give me 300 pages worth of what? How to overcome the difference in planets? It's not going to work. So if men are from Mars and women are from Venus, stick to your own planet. God invented marriage. Marriage is an amazing, miraculous transformation where a man becomes a husband and a woman becomes a wife. Then everything changes. Husband and wife are inseparable. Man and woman are better off without each other. So the tragedy today is that couples get married, but he does not become a husband and she does not become a wife. He remains a man, she remains a woman, and now they're wondering why they don't get along. They shouldn't get along. In fact, when a couple tell me that they're working on their relationship and they're going for therapy, I don't understand that. What does it mean you're working on your relationship? Say that in simple English. I'm working on the relation. It means you don't like her. Is that what it means? You don't like her. So you're working on it and you're going for therapy? You don't need therapy. Men and women don't get along. You're perfectly healthy. If you should ever find a man and a woman who do get along, something's not right. They need therapy. Because, something's fishy here. If he remains a man and she remains a woman, of course they don't get along. Men and women don't get along. Why do men refuse to become husbands? Why do women refuse to become wives? Very simple. There's no glamour. It's embarrassing. Wives are the butt of all jokes. When a group of married women, of housewives, get together for an evening, what is it called? A girls' night out. Some of their daughters are already women, but it's a girls'. Why isn't it called a wives' night out? Are you kidding? They want to have fun. Wives don't have fun. Wives are desperate. So not only can't they be wives, they can't even be women. Because the last time they had any fun was when they were girls. So it's got to be a girls' night out. So who wants to be a wife? And husbands? There are no bigger losers and wimps than husbands. Guy gets up middle of the night. He's miserable because he has post-nasal drip. He can't get out of bed and get the NyQuil? No. She has to get out of bed, bring him the NyQuil, and put him to sleep. You want to be a husband after that? Now there's a commercial where this guy wakes up, Alexa, can you get me my medicine? So when you turn husbands into such wimps, who wants to be a husband? We got to bring back the glamour of husband and wife. So in order to be husband and wife, to become inseparable, we have to be able to dissolve. As long as you maintain your structure, as long as you maintain your definition of yourself, you're living side by side. The real reason I decided to write this book, which is a bit controversial among rabbis. You know, we don't talk about this. In fact, after this evening is over, I will deny ever having been here. Because we don't talk about this. But the reason I wrote the book is because we've always known that there is divorce. Husband and wife can have a very hard time with each other and need to go their separate ways. So there's stress and there's fighting and okay, we're human. But when happily married couples, and this is happening a lot, happily married couples with what we would call successful marriages, and they have no complaints to each other, and they wouldn't think of getting divorced. And yet, in a quiet moment, each of them will admit that they feel completely alone in the world. That means that something fundamental is missing in our lives and in our marriages, and that's really scary. If even a good marriage doesn't take away that feeling of being alone in the world, then we're doing something seriously wrong. And we're hurting ourselves. In England, the health department, the government, opened a new division to deal specifically with the health issue called loneliness. It's a health crisis. Because a person who feels alone in the world weakens their immune system. Their immune system crashes. And then they develop all sorts of illnesses and stuff. So it's costing them a fortune, the health. So they want to treat this loneliness. But really, it's not loneliness. It's aloneness. It's very different. We are not lonely people. We are very sociable people. We have friends all over the world. Everybody likes you online. You know, that word is useless now. So we have friends, we party, we go places. We're not lonely. And despite that, we feel completely alone. And that's what weakens our immune system, because we're not designed to be alone. So why, in a good marriage, can the people feel alone? It's because they're not dissolving. They're living side by side, and everything's working. A working marriage? That's not very romantic. A marriage should be more than a working arrangement, a successful partnering. So a guy says, I love everything about my wife. Isn't that nice? I love everything about my wife. And that left me a little puzzled because his wife had just called me asking for a divorce. So what's going on here? So I said to the guy, you love everything about your wife? Yeah. I said, how about her? Do you love her? He said, I love everything about her. I said, you're not answering my question. Do you love her? He says, what about her? I said, no, not about her. Do you love her? He says, I don't know what you're talking about. We have developed this obsession with things, and we're not connecting to each other. I love everything about my wife. What about her? If you take the things away, what is her? Who needs her without the things? If a man says, I love you for your money, but then you lost your money, so I don't love you anymore. That's not even correct English. I never loved you. I only loved the money. Now that the money is gone, I don't know what you're doing in my house. Get out. Who invited you? So we all understand that. A man marries for money, a woman marries for money. Come on, that's not real love. That's not real romance. That's not real marriage. Because if you marry me for my money, you're married to the money, not to me. You love the money, you don't love me. So often this couple come for marriage counseling and they call each other all sorts of names and accuse each other of all sorts of horrible, and it goes on and on and on. And then they say, so you think we should get divorced? I say, actually, I think you should get married. You're already divorced. But if you tried, you could make a nice couple. Want to get married? Because you never got married. You loved everything about each other. That's not a marriage. In fact, if I love you for your money, for your looks, for your intelligence, for your sense of humor, for your wonderful family, you know what that's called? Polygamy. I am married to 5 things. Unfortunately, you're not one of them. I am married to everything about you, just not to you. You have 2 drops of water on the table, next to each other. Why are there 2 drops? Water is supposed to flow. What's it doing sitting there like a drop? That's not the way water behaves. The answer is surface tension. The air creates a certain tension, and the water is not big enough, there's not enough water to break that so the air keeps each drop in its shape. And that's what separates them. What will it take for them to merge and become 1 drop? Not much. Breathe on it. Touch it. Shake the table. It will break the surface tension and they will naturally flow together and become one drop. That's what happens in a marriage. Male and female were never meant to be separate beings. God created the first human being, male and female. Then he separated them, right? Remember that operation? And they became two people. And immediately after separating them, God says, therefore, should a man leave his mother and father, cleave to his wife, and become one. We always thought that that operation was an improvement. Because, male and female, that's a little weird. So when God separated them, we became normal. A man and a woman. Every separation is unnatural. Because God is one. All separation is unholy. Because holiness is oneness. Separation, division, unholy. So when we became two, we lost our natural oneness. Because the way we were created, that's our true nature. So getting married means reclaim your true nature. Male, female, one person. That's what marriage is. How does that happen? All you need to do is break the surface tension. You don't need to create oneness. You need to remove the interference, the tension. A man wants to devote his life to his wife to where he completely dissolves. I got to tell you something which men are not supposed to reveal. What is the definition of a husband? What is unique about a husband? And no nasty jokes. So some people say, commitment. You start a business together, you make a commitment. You even sign a contract. Commitment doesn't describe a husband. Yeah, he does. The definition of husband that makes him different from every other creature in the world, a husband is the only being whose entire existence and identity depends on someone else's happiness. Because a husband whose wife is unhappy is a devastated being. Devastated. When a husband is unhappy, the wife is concerned. She is not devastated. She'll talk to her friends about him, consult, what can we do? But devastated? She's not devastated. If he sees his wife unhappy, he is a destroyed human being. And it's the only one. If your child is unhappy, you worry. You're not devastated. Men are so desperate for their wives to be happy, they don't even care what they're happy about. It doesn't even have to be about me. Just be happy. Because if you're not happy, you destroy me. A husband wants to dissolve his being into her life. And a woman wants to surrender herself completely to him. That's nature. We are no good separate. We're not complete separate. So we want desperately to merge. The experts are now saying that all the emphasis for the last 10, 20 years, all the emphasis on increased pleasure, how to get more pleasure out of your intimate relationship, has been a terrible mistake. We don't need more pleasure. We've been sold a bill of goods. It's just not true. We don't need more pleasure in our relationships. We have chocolate. What we need from our relationships is closeness. That's what the experts are saying. They're close, but they're not there yet. The Torah says marriage is not for closeness. You should be close with your mother and father. You should be close with your siblings. You should be close with your fellow Jew. What we want from marriage is oneness, not closeness. That's not good enough. Because closeness will not take away that feeling that you're alone in the world. So here is the beauty of marriage. The Torah says, therefore you should leave your mother and father and cleave to your spouse to become one. Why can't you be one with your mother and father? Flesh and blood. You are not one with your mother and father, no matter how close and no matter how good that relationship is, because you're not the only one to them. They have each other. You're number 3. And the same is true with your children. You're not one with your child because you have each other. The only relationship that is truly monogamous, where you are the only one, is in your marriage. And that's why your oneness with your spouse is deeper and stronger than your relationship with your parents. Isn't that amazing? So if we can't surrender to each other, we are frustrating ourselves. And that's why living together, what does that prove? Living together means I can't completely dissolve because I'm not sure I want to be with you forever. So let's not make that commitment yet. So if you're living together, what will you know? What will you discover? A bunch of things about each other. And they say, well, I like all the things about each other. Let's get married. Big mistake. Because marriage means moving beyond all things to the person. Connected to the person, not to anything about the person. So, you love everything about your wife? You're a glutton. And she is still alone in the world. So, of course, when you're dating, when you're choosing someone to marry, what are you basing it on? Things. But that's because you want to get to the person. You don't want to stop at the things. So you check out all the things and you like it. You say, okay, now let's get married. That means let's move beyond all these things and have each other. So Tevye says to Golda, do you love me? And she says, he says, do you love me? She sings him a song. For 25 years, I've washed your clothes, I made your meals. He's asking about love, she's talking about laundry. What is this supposed to mean? he is a little immature. He's Tevye. His wife is a mature woman. So he says, do you love me? And she says, what? What has gotten into you? For 25 years, I am yours. You have me. All of me. All you can think about is love? So you're asking whether I'm giving you my love? I gave myself to you. And if that's not love, what is? There's a more powerful word in the English language, more powerful than love, and that is mine. Be mine. I'm yours. We belong to each other. It's not a feeling, it's way beyond. So when we say, our grandparents, they had solid marriages. There was no divorce. And everybody says, yeah, but look how miserable they were with each other. See, but that's the beauty of it. They weren't in it for love. They weren't in it for pleasure because they weren't getting any. But they had each other, and they were not going to give that up for anything, not even for love. So a few practical things. First of all, stop saying I love you. Everybody thinks that's the most beautiful sentence in the world. It's not. It's a nasty little sentence. And often it represents a threat. I love you. Watch it. Because in a second I can stop loving you. Any sentence that begins with the word I is not good. Any sentence where the first word is I, the last word is you, this is not good news. I love you is cute. It's not meaningful. But you are mine? That is so powerful. In Yiddish, in the good old days, you saw a child in the street. You didn't ask the child, what's your name? You would ask, wemens bist du? Whose are you? Who do you belong to? Belonging. That's what we're all looking for. And yet, for some reason, the word mine has become a dirty word. Of course, it's not possessive. My husband doesn't mean he belongs to me. My child doesn't mean he belongs to me. So here's what it looks like. You remember having a moment where everything was so perfect that you wish time would just stop and it would remain frozen like this forever because you can't imagine anything better. That's called worship. What does it mean to worship God? I mean, aside from doing the mitzvah. Worshiping God means you think of God and nothing can get better. He is perfect. It can't get better. That's called worship. When you worship an idol, you're being a fool because it can get better. The idol is not perfect. What are you worshiping? But there are moments, like when you look at your baby, when he's sleeping, and it can't, that's it. It can't get better. This is what marriage is supposed to be. You come home, another very powerful word. You come home and you find yourself in the place that you belong. There's no other place you should be. And you are doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. There's nothing else you should be doing. And you are with the person that you belong with, and there's no one else you should be with. If you have these three conditions, I am where I belong, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, with the person I'm supposed to be with, that's it. It doesn't get better than that. If there's a moment where the place you're in is so perfect that there's no place else you'd rather be, there's nothing else you would rather be doing, and there's no one else you would rather be with, that's heaven. That is literally a taste of heaven. So when people ask, you really believe in heaven? I say, believe in it? What, you were never there? You were never in heaven? That's very sad. Get your act together. You don't have to die to go to heaven. That's what it should feel like. And this is the definition of intimacy. Intimacy means two people connecting to each other without anything joining them. It's not like we both love tennis or pina colada. We're not meeting at a third point. It's just us. And here's the final shocker. It's really shocking every time we discover that Grandma was right again. If you asked your grandmother, what happens in the bedroom? Your grandmother said, nothing. You say, come on, tell me. I need to know. I'm turning 38. Tell me what happens in the bedroom. Your grandmother says, nothing. I said, fine, you don't want to tell me? She did tell you. And it's the only correct answer. What is a bedroom? In a living room, there are many things. Well, there should be. Otherwise, it's an empty room. In the kitchen, there are many things. To make a kitchen, you got to have a lot of things. A bedroom means the place of him and her. No things. So when you ask your grandmother, what happens in the bedroom? No thing. It's just them. And they have each other. And they are not a thing. So what is a bedroom? A no-thing zone. When you walk into the bedroom, you leave everything at the door. Don't bring anything into the bedroom. What are these things you should leave at the door? The television. It should not be in the bedroom. There are three partners in the birth of a child: the mother, the father, and God. Not Conan. There should be no television, no computer, nothing. It's just a place for them. If you bring a thing into the bedroom, it's a little pornographic. Because pornography means turning people into a thing, turning intimacy into a thing. A couple are intimate, and then the wife says, how was it? Or the husband says, how was it? There was an it in the bedroom? I thought it was just us. Who let the it in? What is the it? Look, you have to ask how it was. Weren't you there? Obviously not. And that's true. You were not there. You were in Mars. She was in Venus. Now you have to check and see, how are things on Mars? So the sex actually separated them. No wonder they feel alone in the world. Intimacy is the opposite. Intimacy means there's no thing. This is not a performance. It's not an Olympic event. It's just us being us. You have to ask how that is. That's always wonderful. It's perfect. I'm where I belong, doing what I should be doing with the person I should be with. What? That's perfect. So I gotta tell you this. A guy in the Chabad house staring at me. Finally, he comes over to me and he says, just out of curiosity, I've been wondering, when you sleep, do you sleep with your beard under the blanket or with the beard on top of the blanket? I could not sleep for 3 weeks. You think it's funny? You tell me, should it be under the blanket or on the blanket? Go ahead, tell me. I tried it under the blanket. Tried it on the blanket. I went back and forth and back and forth. I couldn't sleep for 3 weeks. See, when you turn something perfectly natural into a thing, it disturbs your life. Husband and wife do not engage in something. Intimacy means enjoying the greater pleasure of each other, not the pleasure of something you're doing with each other. So here's the bumper sticker. Nothing you get from your wife is as important as your wife. How did we forget that? The biggest and strongest reminder, the most powerful tool, is the fact that we separate for 2 weeks out of the month. And then go to the mikveh, and then we're back together again for 2 weeks. And some people think, my God, that means that half your life you're separated. If only it were half your life. Do you know what's going on in the average bedroom in America? Once a month, if they're lucky. Tired, bored, exhausted. That's terrible. So we need to reclaim intimacy. We need to be able to dissolve again, to merge, to become whole. No more things, nothing. In the Gemara, it tells a story about a woman who had incredible children. And the sages came and asked, what are you doing that creates such amazing children, physically, spiritually? And the woman said, we are never intimate before 1 o'clock in the morning. And they said, that's your secret? She says, in our village, there's activity up until 1 o'clock in the morning. After 1 o'clock in the morning, there's no activity in the street. There's no horse coming, there's no door opening or closing, there's nothing to distract us. So the intimacy is total. So if you ask, what can I do to reclaim intimacy? One thing, and it's amazing how powerful that is. Intimacy must be in the dark. Doesn't that make sense? If the light is on, you're going to see. What are you going to see? Something. That's what the eye sees. It sees things. If you see something, it has distracted you from the intimacy. And even if you're seeing each other, you're seeing something about each other. You're not connecting to each other. So intimacy must be in the dark. If people would do just that, it would change their relationship dramatically. Remember all the old television shows? I Love Lucy? Do you remember when they were going to be intimate? What did they do? And turned off the lamp. Right? That was always like fade to black. Now they're being intimate. That was universal. It wasn't religiously Jewish. That was a universal thing. Intimacy is in the dark. Because what do you want to see? You can't see intimacy. Turns out that they also had 2 beds. Remember? Never show a couple in one bed. And now that I think about it, it makes so much sense. If you're going to be intimate, show a little initiative. Like, at least get up. Show a little interest. It's not like, we're here anyway. And you're not going to let me sleep, so it's horrible. It's really horrible. Talk about familiarity being overdone. Whoa. How can you possibly sleep next to each other? While you're sleeping. So in my first book, Doesn't Anyone Blush Anymore, I tell a story about these teenagers who, they were from the Reform temple, but they started coming to the Chabad house and they were getting interested. And before the summer, they came to me and said, we're going on a camping trip, which we do every year. This year, we want to make it kosher. Because they were talking about the food. I said, who's going and where are you going? They said, 8 of us, 4 boys, 4 girls, 17 years old. Where are they going? To the boundary wall area on the border with Canada, which is a pristine, and where are they staying? In a tent, out in the middle of nowhere. I said, not kosher. They said, we haven't gotten to the food yet. I said, the whole arrangement is not kosher. 4 boys, 4 girls in a tent? They were offended. Because these are really decent, Midwestern, nice kids. And one of the boys said, we do this every year. We do everything together. We grew up together from kindergarten on. We do everything together. Nothing ever happens. In fact, last year, he said, one of the sleeping bags got too close to the fire and was destroyed. So we shared a sleeping bag. Nothing happened. I said, in that case, you don't need to speak to a rabbi. You need a psychiatrist quickly. Nothing happened? And you're proud of that? You're in trouble. So if you say, husband and wife, they're intimate maybe once a month. 28 days out of the month, they just sleep. Nothing happens. I think they need therapy. And it's so insulting. I'm right there, but no, you just want to sleep. Thank you very much. You know, it's a bad idea. Besides, you don't get good sleep. How many couples, don't raise your hand, but how many couples in America end up sleeping in separate rooms? Because he snores. Or it's just not comfortable. So he ends up sleeping on the couch. This should never happen. So I'm not advocating separate rooms, which would be, wow. Look, I mean, talk about romance. When the king wants to be intimate with the queen, he has to knock on her door. I mean, this man is serious. He wants intimacy. It's really powerful. But two separate rooms is not always a good idea. But a little initiative, take a little interest. This is the holiest thing that two human beings can do aside from a mitzvah. It deserves a little more respect than it's getting. This is the solution to what's going on in the world today. What is all that abuse, all that molesting? What is all that? So some experts say it's the abuse of power. Not always. Some experts say men have no respect for women. Not always. Men who do respect women will behave the same way. So what's missing here? If you ask those men, have you no respect for women? They'll say, I absolutely do have respect for women. So you say, then why do you do that? You know what their answer is? Do what? What? It was nothing. I touched her, I pinched her, I looked at her, I asked. Nothing. See, that's the problem. It's not that men don't respect women. It's that we, all of us, don't respect intimacy. It was nothing. It wasn't nothing. It was intimate inappropriately. Final story. We have this program, Beis Chana, in Minnesota. Women come for a crash course since 1971. There was a woman there in the 70s who had come out of the 60s, and she was a rebel. She refused to play the game, the bourgeois game. So she neglected herself. I mean, badly, with a vengeance. She would not do any of the feminine things. She was a little hard to be with. Nobody wanted to share a room with her. I mean, she really neglected herself. One day she says, I need to talk to you privately. So we went into a room, which I called my office. It wasn't an office, it was a storage room. She sat down near the door and she closed the door. I said, nah, leave the door open a little. She said, why? I said, because a man and a woman should not be alone in a room with the door closed. There's no window. She started to sob. And I thought I had offended her. But when she pulled herself together, she said, this is the first time anyone has treated me like a woman. So the point is, personally, was I attracted to her? Does that mean that closing the door is not intimate? See, intimacy has a reality of its own. Intimacy doesn't depend on how I feel or what I think. So, for example, a married woman is having an affair. Who's being violated? Nobody. Neither of them is hurting the other. What they're destroying is the intimacy of her marriage, the sanctity of the marriage. It's not personal, it's not subjective, it's reality. A man and a woman walk into a room and close the door, something intimate just happened, even if you're clueless. Platonic relationships. You can't fool Mother Nature. A hug, a kiss, yeah, platonic. It's not platonic. It's meaningful. Holding hands is shaking hands. People say, what? Shaking hands, it's nothing. Really? Remember when someone shook your hand and held it 2 seconds longer than necessary? All of a sudden, whoa, something's wrong here. Let go of my hand, you pervert. Like, whoa, I'm just shaking your hand. Who's timing this? There a 6-second law, a rule? No, because holding hands, shaking hands is an intimacy. Just because you don't feel it doesn't change the reality. So what's happening in the world is that we have lost respect for intimacy. A touch is nothing, a kiss is nothing, a hug is nothing, a dirty joke is nothing, exposing yourself is nothing. Nothing happened. What are we doing to ourselves? Where is the respect for intimacy? And then you come home when you should be intimate. And it doesn't feel intimate. It's boring. So, make your bedroom sacred. Create an atmosphere. The bedroom is for us, not for anything. You leave all your anger at the door. You leave all your worries at the door. You leave all your complaints at the door. You do not bring them into a bedroom. You must treat the bedroom as holy. Remember the last time or the first time you went to Israel, to Yerushalayim, you went to the Kotel? The first time? Was it enjoyable? It wasn't just enjoyable. It was awesome. It was scary. Scary enjoyable. That's what intimacy has to feel like. It's awesome. The ability to dissolve into each other, belong to someone, that's awesome. So John says, I go to California, all these people sitting around unemployed. And I ask them, what do you do for a living? And they're all sitting around trying to decide where to put the sex scene in their next movie. And he says to them, why does every movie have to have a sex scene? And they say, because the movie is a depiction of reality, and in real life, people have sex. He says, yeah, they also have soup. If you think about it, that is a devastating comment. Why, if you have a soup scene, the movie won't sell? Even if it's tasteful. A tasteful soup scene won't sell. Why will sex sell? You know when he made this joke? 30 years ago. It's no longer true. Sex doesn't sell anymore because it has become soup. It has become soup. Nobody cares anymore. Teenagers are already bored. They're looking for alternatives. So, from now on, Instead of saying, I love you, you say, you I love. I'm not looking for love. I'm looking for you. You I love. Otherwise, I don't need love. I'm not a child. I need you. And when I have you, it doesn't get any better. That's a marriage. That's what the book is about. And the theme that we came up with is, there's a movie that goes with the book. The theme is fixing the world one bedroom at a time. See, in the Torah, when the Torah wants to describe intimacy, it uses a euphemism. It uses the word know. Adam knew Eve, and she conceived. It's a very appropriate euphemism because knowing is intimate. When you know someone, that's an intimate connection. When you hear someone, when you feel that you've heard, that's an intimacy. So if you want to use a euphemism, that's the proper euphemism. The euphemisms we use today is so ridiculous. A man and a woman are intense emotional physical relationship, and it's called dating. What does that even mean? Are you dating anyone? No. Not an anthropologist? A guy says, I'm dating my girl. Well, she's still alive. What are you doing? You know what it used to be? Courting. Did you ever go courting? A courting? What in the world does that mean? Are you going with anybody? You going out? No, I'm going in. Not going anywhere, I'm staying home. What does going mean? We're going steady. Cruise control? And then the winner. Are you seeing anybody? Nope. Where do you live, in a cave? This guy says, I'm seeing a really special woman. I said, that's great. When can I see her? This is an indication. It's an indication that we are terrified of intimacy. We'll call it everything except closeness. See, I was seeing this woman. Am I seeing her now? No. What is that, Heartbreak Hotel? I saw her, now I don't see her. It's so sterile, just to avoid being hurt. So yes, if you can tell my life with your words, killing me softly with your song, that's an intimacy. How do you know me that well? How did you get into my head? That is closeness. Love is proper. It's not important. So when I say you I love, what I'm saying is I'm not looking for love. I'm looking for you. And that's why your love has become significant. Otherwise, it's like no mother ever said to her children, you don't love me? You're not the only kids in the world. The neighbor's kids love me. They're cuter than you. See, no mother would ever say that because no mother needs love from her children. That's seriously juvenile. You need love from a child? Every mother wants her children's love, not love from her children. And the difference is huge. Because your children's love you can't get from anybody else. Because it's about your children, not about love. And the same is true with husband and wife. You don't need love from your husband. If you need love, go home to your mother. That's the source of love. And if your mother didn't love you, I'm sorry. But you're not going to make up for it with love from your husband. You don't need love from your husband. You need your husband's love. Why? Because he's your husband. And that love you can't get from somebody else. So if you need your husband's love and you're not getting your husband's love, what are you going to do? Try a little harder. But you're not going anywhere. So the place of love is, it follows the relationship. First, there's a relationship. We belong to each other. So we might as well love each other. And if you don't love me today, I'll try tomorrow. Same thing with God. Do Jews love God? Not today. Maybe tomorrow. But he is my God, and I'm not going nowhere without him. That's what it means when Jews say, I don't keep all those rituals, but I'm just as Jewish as you. That's true. Don't shout. You're right. Don't raise your voice. It's true. You're just as Jewish. Because it's a real relationship. So there's a mitzvah to love God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your might. Doesn't that show how important love is? No. It shows how important God is, so you might as well love him because he's not going anywhere. I'm laughing because there's nothing he can do about it. And if you don't love him today, try tomorrow.